Hi guys, welcome back. And this time around I'm to a certain extent bringing you a review which obviously is going to focus on these three IEMs, the DUNU, the Dk3001BD, the new ISN EBC80 and the TANGZU Bajie. But it's also, we can say, a part 2 with a list of my favorite IEMs, or the IEMs that I genuinely like or enjoy or go to more often, and kind of in a way helping you guys understand where I'm coming from, what is the type of sound that I like, what is the style of sound that I like. Anyway, let me take you, just quickly let you know what is over here, and then I'll take you through each one of these IEMs individually. On the top there, I've got the ISN EST50, a tribrid that's been around already for a few years. And I mean, I don't want to sound redundant or like repeat myself, but for lack of a better word, one of my favorite EST implementations. It's got the typical PENON audio, ISN audio sound, very well executed bass. It's a gliding style of bass, but it's full, it's powerful, it's big, and then it's got those simply stunning mids that, don't shout, just absolute bliss, organic, an absolute pleasure to listen to, with you feeling that the ESTs are there in just the right amount. The ESTs, one of those things that either they are too much or then they are too little. Fair enough, there are a few IEMs that I wanted to also include here because they're also part of my favorite IEMs, like the Let's Sure, the EJ7M, the EJ07M, sorry, the variations from Moondrop. But I just didn't want to make this one of those reviews like I always do, which is, goes on forever and ever and ever. So you could say this is a part 2 of my favorite IEMs, but there are a few others that could be part of this equation, and maybe perhaps if you guys want, I'll do that video, a part 3 or a part 2.1 or whatever. But anyway, like I said, EST50, phenomenal. Next to that, the ISN H60, this time a hybrid, a 2+4, 2 dynamic drivers, then plus 4 BAs, ESTs and SONYINs. It is here to better help position the EBC as well, like the case of the EST. Next to that, the KINERA Urd. What can I say? It's got the style of sound that I like. I mean, I'm very open to different styles of tuning, different styles of playback. As long as it's well done. Because yes, it is important that it's half decent capable in terms of its technicalities and so on and so. But at the end of the day, it's about the sound, like I say a lot of the times. And if it sounds good to the ears, who cares if it doesn't have an appealing graph or this or that or whatever, or if it's from a no name brand. It just must sound good. And the Urd is one of those IEMs that it just sounds good to my ears. Maybe my old man ears are deceiving me, but it just sounds good. It's got again that sound which is very much like the EST50. It's also a tribrid, very well executed implementation of the mids and the highs, and with the ESTs just being there in the right amount. Nice, very nice bass from a small driver. KINERA is known for using usually the smaller drivers, but knowing how to use them, let's put it that way. And the bass that you get out of that 8mm driver is pretty impressive. Next to that, the KINERA Verdandi, which is a quadbrid in the sense that it has a bone conduction, 2 Knowles BAs, 2 SONYIN ESTs, and a 1 DD, which is basically the same configuration that you get here on the EBC80 and also on the Bajie, and that's the reason why these three kind of made sense to have them here. What can I say about the Verdandi? The Verdandi is a less mid-centric or less focused in the upper mids and treble version of the low-key, and obviously it has a substantial price difference. We're talking roughly $1,200 as opposed to $3,000. Is the price difference justified? Does it make sense when you take into consideration the law of diminishing returns, when you take into consideration performance ratio to value? Yes, it does. I think that, you know, however much I absolutely adore the low-key, and it's definitely one of those IEMs that I would consider an endgame IEM for me. The Verdandi does very much the same thing well, I'm just going to say a third of the price. Fair enough, it doesn't have such a complete accessories package, but it's a solid IEM, really, really solid. And again, once again, the dynamic driver this time around, a 6mm driver, just absolutely blows you away, but by the quality, which is always there. I mean, any of KINERA stuff, and KINERA, Celeste, Queen of Audio. You guys, if you haven't seen my review of the Queen of Audio Adonis 2, I mean, wow, and that actually is using a bigger than usual dynamic driver. But that 6mm driver over there is phenomenal. The quality is just surreal. It's probably one of the better quality basses overall out of all of these IEMs. And if it doesn't shine more, obviously it's because it's 6mm, and then it has all the rest of the stuff there to keep up with. So on its own, it's very well balanced, it's very coherent. Everything sounds and comes together as just one unit, one single driver, let's put it that way. But yes, when you compare it with some of the other IEMs that are here, you notice that the bass is not maybe as big, as full, so the quantity of the bass. Next to that, the Moonlight Ultra from YANYIN. It is here because, look, the reality is this: I like it. Okay, I like it. I think the Canon 2 is a better deal, obviously, and the biggest issue with the Moonlight, and I've said it from the Ultra, I've said it from day one, it's the price. The fact that they've added more ESTs to the equation does not justify it basically doubling the price, and that's where I think the Ultra kind of loses its ability to compete. And if it had a price of around $700–800, it would have been a way more successful IEM, because it is a well done IEM. It is well tuned. It sounds good. It is good. I like it. That's why it's here. It's one of my favorite IEMs, although the price I think is a little bit nonsensical. It just doesn't, you know, especially when you have some of the IEMs that are over here. I mean, for $499, the DUNU, the Dk3001, I think it's, you know, phenomenal. The same thing goes with the EST50 for around $460, if I'm not mistaken, the price. Just, you know, again, a real, even the H60 at $349, it keeps up very well with the YANYIN. It keeps up very, very well. So I think YANYIN there, they got carried away, honestly. But as an IEM in terms of sound, phenomenal. Okay, now let's take us then to the reason for this review, or for this I'm not going to say a comparison, because obviously these two are similar in their configuration. This one is different. This is a tribrid, but I just thought it would be interesting to have them all together. Honestly, I really do. DUNU Dk3001BD, the latest from DUNU. A really cool cyberpunk, if you want to call it that way, kind of style to the shell. White. I don't think this is going to last in terms of it. Maybe withstanding a couple of kinks or not. I'm very careful, so I don't really have an issue. But those of you that, you know, will give it a more, let's say, normal usage will probably suffer a little bit. The cable is one of those cables that we've seen now lately, you know, DUNU being used, this new generation of cable with the cloth covering the majority of the cable, and just then the actual cable by itself being on the ends that go to the IEM. Initially, I have to admit that I wasn't too fond of it, but I've grown to like it, because it measures well, it sounds good, and it doesn't tangle. It's easy to unwind. Honestly, nice, really, really nice. I mean, be it in the KINERA 2, be it as well in the oh my, had a little bit of a blank now. The what's the other one? The other single DD that they have, which uses the same cable. Oh my God, anyway, when it comes to me, I'll let you know. You know, the cable works fine. It's perfect in terms of its overall accessories. I mean, DUNU never disappoints. It's got this little pouch to protect the IEMs themselves, which makes sense because of what I said about the actual paint. I like this case. It's a little bit on the bigger side, but I like this case. Plenty of tips. I'm using the SS tips in the kind of transparent white finish. They work great. The other white ones that they have in here also worked quite well, although simple. They actually worked quite well, and they've got another case with some more tips. So accessories wise and so on, we know that you know, I was going to say KINERA, DUNU doesn't disappoint. Anyway, continuing here with the actual DK in itself, because that's what we want to know. It's a bigger shell, but it fits, in my ears at least, fits perfectly. I've got no complaints. I like the overall, I just like the way that it fits and sits my ears. No issues there. What about the sound? Well, it's got that tucked style of bass, kind of like the Dos Cinco, the variation. So it's not a gliding style of bass like we've seen on those ones on the top there. The Moonlight may be a little bit more of a tuck, but this has got a tuck style of bass. And then very nicely done mids and upper mids and treble. The upper mids and treble are helped out by 4 microplanars. You know, some people have said that it's a little bit too intense in the upper frequencies. Again, I repeat, my experience, my hearing, my deficient hearing doesn't have any complaints in that aspect. Where I usually complain and I have an issue with is if the mids are way too forward. So if that pin again peaks at 2K or below, I usually have an issue with that, especially if that pin again is at the same level. Well, I wouldn't say same level, but about at the same level or above the peak of the bass at about 100 Hertz. That bugs me, and I also get a little bit of an issue with the area between 5 and 6.5 if it's also too prominent. If, however, the IEM has got enough bass energy coming from behind, and it doesn't, that difference between the peak of the bass and where that peak in that area lies is not tremendous, I can deal with that peak better. Here, no issues whatsoever. And then the highs again. No, nothing that I can say offended me. I didn't find it harsh. I didn't find it aggressive. It just worked very well. It just worked extremely nicely. I'm using the SS tips like I mentioned. I also tried some of the Venus Velvets. I tried as well the new LS tips, which are from ISN, from PENON Audio. Fantastic tip, by the way. These tips are absolute magic. These ones and the liqueur are absolute magic. And I'm not saying this because it's from PENON. I'm saying this because I've used those tips quite frequently now. You know that I've always liked the green tips from PENON, which I've got over there, and I've always liked the KB07 tips, be it the Akuston version, be it the KB version, be it even in the nice HDK version. They're all kind of basically the same. And I like the BGVP wide bores. The BGVP wide bore is definitely one of my favorite tips. But these LS tips are quickly becoming my go-to tip. But in the case here of the DK3001, I found that the SS tips were the ones that kind of work the best. I'm using the large size, and like I was saying, you know, I didn't find any issues with regards to any sort of over energy with regards to the frequency range. I found it overall to be very nicely balanced. If anything, because of that tuck in the bass, maybe it loses a little bit of mid-bass energy or mid-bass impact when you compare it to something like, for example, the EST50 or the H60, to a certain extent as well, the Ultra, the Moonlight, and even the EBC and the TANGZU. Yes, you do notice that there's a little bit of mid-bass slam in songs like, for example, let me just give you a definite example, a concrete example, so you can understand. Let me see here. From Dusk to Dawn, from George Duke, or Little Fuge in G minor by Jacques Lassois Trio, Musical Genocide to a certain extent as well by Gregory Porter. Let me see here, another one. Nightbirds by Darius. You notice that those others, for me at least, they have just a little extra, a little bit of mid bass impact, which, you know, makes it extremely, it just makes it very nice. However, a song like like Deeper from Pete Belasco, plenty of bass, because that song's got that more sub bass focus. It sounds phenomenal. Or then if you go for things like It Had to Be You by Jack Ross, somehow it actually does manage to give that song the required energy in the mid bass. I mean, honestly, that's more of a nitpick than really a complaint, because overall I actually find that the coherence between the drivers has been extremely well done. It's a clean, detailed sound. It's got, in instances, it's got some vibes of the DUNU DaVinci and the DUNU DaVinci type of let's say, I wouldn't call it timbre and tonality, because definitely you do notice this got more upper mids and treble, but it's got that DaVinci style to a certain extent, although the DaVinci, yes, does have a little bit more mid bass impact. But anyway, what I can in essence say about the DK3001 is that it's a very well tuned IEM, and for the $499 that it is being sold for, I got this particular unit from HIFIGO. My thank you to them, by the way. I paid for it actually. I just want to say that yes, we have always, and I've mentioned many times, that issue of the law of diminishing returns and so on and so forth, but I think that the value that you have here is adequate when you consider, you know, accessories, overall sound, everything. It makes sense. Okay, it's an IEM that makes sense. And when for example, I take the likes of the EM10, which by the way I like, and I think it's a fantastic IEM from SIMGOT. This, for example, would probably, although slightly more expensive, would probably be an IEM that I would choose over it, not only because of the accessories that it brings, but because overall the sound just seems a little extra more polished in the upper mids and treble. Look, irrespective, and I respect other people's opinions, but for me the execution and the blending of the BAs with the planars has been very well done, and it just sounds like a very polished product. That's how it comes across to me. Now, next, EBC80 from ISN. I'm not going to hide it. I'm a big fan of PENON and ISN. I own basically every single model except, well, right now from ISN I own every model, if I'm not mistaken. But from PENON I just don't own the more expensive ones. I would love to own an Impact. I had the opportunity to listen to it once, review it and everything. But I'd honestly, that's one IEM that it's still kind of, that one and the Supernova from 7th Acoustics, or two IEMs that are, well, the 7th Acoustics, it's the issue more of the time that you have to wait to get it. And sometimes I have to admit I'm not the most patient of persons, but I guess age will teach me to be a little bit more patient. But anyway, the EBC80 is again a 4-driver setup like the Verdandi on top there. However, it's a slightly different configuration. It uses 2 ESTs, 2 BAs, 2 DDs, and 2 bone conductions. It is the one that I noticed the bone conduction. Well, the one that I noticed the bone conduction the most is on the Verdandi. This one is probably the one that I noticed it the second most, and on the Bajie I noticed it the least. But you do pick up on it, and again, bone conduction, it's one of those things that, you know, the Fan 3 is the perfect example for you to see if it's there or not, because of that switch that can actually put it on and off. So I agree that sometimes people will not feel it. I've had IEMs that didn't feel the presence of the bone conduction, because it has a lot to do with how the shell touches your inner conch, how it touches your ear, and how it transmits then the vibrations, and where the bone conduction is actually focusing on in terms of frequency range. The more lower frequencies, the more upper mids, the more mids or upper mids, that will have a determining factor. But as I was saying, it's got the 2 ESTs, the 2 BAs. The 2 ESTs are from Sonyin. The Knowles, there's a Knowles balanced armature for the high frequency. There's a Sonyin balanced armature for the mids, which by the way is a common thing for ISN. They usually use Sonyin in in the mids, and then it's got two 8mm liquid silicone dynamic drivers in a clamshell configuration, bass pump style, not isobaric, similar to the H60, probably the same. The shell is in essence very similar. It's got, it's got this very nice finish to it. I mean, nicely done faceplate. There's another IEM which I recently reviewed, a nice cheap IEM that actually also has this sort of finish on the faceplate, which is the TKZK-TK02. But the TKZK02 on picture it looks very nice, but when you have it up live in your hand, it just looks a little bit cheap. On the case of the EBC80, no, it looks the part, and the faceplate does definitely look the business. It looks like an IEM that is premium. Yes, we are talking $699. We're not talking small money here. In terms of fit, beautiful, fits fantastically in my ears. Tried the Liqueur, tried the LS, tried the Venus Velvet, tried a whole bunch of tips. The tips that worked the best were the Venus and the LS tips. Those were the tips that worked the best for me. In terms of cable, it comes with these blue cables from PENON. It actually brings this particular one here, which is the hybrid one, exactly the H2. Okay, focus, there we go. It brings the H2, which is a mix of silver and copper. Then there's the C2 over here, which is copper, and then there's the S2, which is the silver version one. Okay, I tried all three cables. For me personally, the one that gave, and again, guys, pay special attention to what I'm about to say. This is a very delicate subject when we talk about cables. Very, very delicate, okay? Because there's a number of things which have to be taken into consideration. I mean, what is the dongle, the DAC, the amp you're using, how ultimately the IEM fits in your ears, what is the impedance of the earphone versus the impedance of the cable, and how they match each other. There's a lot of things here, and the reality is 99% of the time it will be the tips the determining factor, and the next determining factor will be the dongle, the DAC. I recently did a review where I mentioned that, for example, if I was using an ESS based dongle, like for example, the Rose Elsa, okay, with the 9039 chip from ESS, and if I was using the TP50, which I've got over here from EPZ, phenomenal little DAC, or if I was using the Yuki, I definitely got a different sort of presentation in terms of how the bass was done energetically, the energy level of the bass, and then how it was also in the mids and upper mids. The IEMs where I discovered this issue, or not an issue, but this particular characteristic with the sound rhyme, the DT900, the SR8, very noticeable, very, very noticeable. So for you to say that oh, the cable is what affected the thing, that's a very limiting way of putting it. But anyway, getting back to the cables, the H2, the C2, the S2, I honestly did not notice a difference. Okay, I didn't. What I did notice was that somehow with the S2 cable, okay, there seemed to be just a little bit extra little sparkle in this music. But guys, this is me listening now to it in my room under ideal conditions, and I noticed that, for example, with the ESS dongle. I didn't notice it with the Yuki or with the KINERA RU7. I didn't notice it with the FIO. I actually even brought out my Runabout 5 from Venture Electronics. Again, one of those pieces that I think that if you were lucky to get it and own it, don't sell it. It is a really, 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 really good little amp. And the way I've been using it is I use dongles to obviously connect it up to my phone, and then or to the PC, and then provide the signal to the actual runabout. And trust me when I say that you will, if you have ever the opportunity of grabbing your hands on one, you will be very impressed. Very impressed. I mean, you guys know that I like my Frankenstein combination, my NX7. I think this is a phenomenal amp. Phenomenal. I mean, this is probably one of the best things that Topping has ever made. And the way that I'm able to couple it with the various dongles that I like doing, you know, the comparisons with, and I've compared it with some really expensive stuff. And let me tell you something, this is special. The Runabout 5 is on the same kind of philosophy. It's not as clean as the topping, and that reason is maybe down to the filtering that it uses internally. So for example, if I'm powering it, if I have it connected up and I'm powering it with a USB hub, and that USB hub is connected to the power mains, you will notice a slight little hum there. You'll notice a little interference, unless I'm using a really good switching power supply, in which case it doesn't pick up on that. With the topping, it's got better filtering. I don't pick up on that. So yes, it does have its flaws. Then again, it's a product that's been around in the market, I don't know, what, 6, 7, 8 years perhaps. But it's one of those things that I will never sell, and if I actually can get my hands on another one, I will buy it. That's how good I think it is. But I'm deterring away here from what I wanted to say. So yes, you can, like I said, maybe pick up on a slight little difference using the S2 cable. I didn't honestly feel that the C2 made it sound warmer, the EBC, and ultimately I think the H2 will be perfectly fine, because I then connected it up here to the Asus Plus X. And yes, I did perceive, depending on which dongle I was using, I did perceive an extra little bit of cleanliness to the sound, an extra little bit incisiveness in the bass. But again, guys, trust me, very minor. The cable looks the part. I mean, this cable, the Asus Plus X, wow. Okay, what can I say? It looks the business. This 12 core cable looks like it could tow a car. It just looks good, and I think it matches the EBC80 perfectly. Okay, but is it a necessity? No. Unless, like I said, you only listen to your IEMs under extremely ideal conditions with no noise and so on and so forth. In normal usage and for practicality purposes, the H2 cable will be more than fine, trust me. In terms of the rest of this, or in terms of the sound, because that's what we want to know. Bass, really good. It's basically the bass of the H60, which is very well executed. It's quick, it's dynamic, it's got weight, it's got energy. It's not a sub bass monster, but it's clean, detailed, resolving. It does everything you want from it. Sub bass is there, mid bass is there, really well. Then we've got the transition to the mids, which is a transition which kind of follows the usual PENON style of transition. You know, not a big peak in the gain in terms of the PINA. You could almost call it, it's got that meta style of tuning, that lower level of 2K, 1.5 to 3K, and then peaks, and then drops off. So, you know, when people sometimes talk about the meta tuning and how it's new and novel, no, it's not really new and novel. It's been done already quite a few times before, and PENON was one of the brands that was doing that sort of recess in the mids already for a while, then with the bass at various levels, and because of the choice of the drivers that they used, you know, it just sounded phenomenal. I mean, really organic, very old school, and that's what you get here. But however, there's more energy when it peaks in the mids, upper mids, and treble, and that extra energy coupled with, you know, the fact that it's got an EST, which is, it's noticeable, especially if you go from the H60 to here, you'd notice straight away that there's more twinklies and sparklies, without question. It just makes for an IEM which is a joy to listen to. I mean, trust me, if you ask me, oh, but Tony, is it better than the EST50? Oh, it's different. You want more organic, more old school, EST50. Definitely. You want that organic sound, but way more detailed, EBC. The price difference, does it justify itself? Guys, you know, this is one of those things that I don't know your finances. You know, $700 is $700. We're talking basically close to $300 more than the EST50. If you have the EST50, should you sell it and go get this? You know, questionable. If you're happy with it, why get rid of it? You know, why? That's the reality. I mean, if you want a little bit more detail and you okay, you could argue that the H60 has got a little bit more detail, but it's not, again, a big difference to the EST50. So if you have the EST50, you have got a phenomenal IEM. Now you have the H60 and you want to upgrade, definitely the EBC is a good upgrade, definitely, because those two have a very similar sound, although one has ESTs and the other one does. It's just a hybrid. But if you want an upgrade and you have an H60, definitely. I would have liked, and I've tried repeatedly to try and see if I can get my hands on a Monarch Mark III and an Origin from The Audio and a few other of these IEMs which have become very popular from The Audio. Unfortunately, I haven't still been able to get a price which matches my capabilities, especially because I buy everything, as you guys know. Occasionally I get one or two IEMs given or sent to me, but it's not that changes my opinion about them, and you know that's the way I work. So unless there's someone out there in Europe preferably that is willing to borrow me his The Audio Monarch Mark III or his Origin or his Prestige or something like that, I cannot really compare and say what this is compared to that. But what I can say is that this is definitely very much like I mentioned and I said about the PENON Voltage when I reviewed it. This is very much an IEM capable of playing with the $1,000 plus IEMs. I mean, and I'm gonna use one example here. If I compare this to the Moonlight Ultra, it walks all over the Ultra. There is nothing that the Ultra can do better than the EBC80. Nothing. And I like the Ultra, okay? Mind you, I don't dislike the Ultra. So for me to say that this, walks all over it, and we're talking $1,200, $1,300 there, $700, yes, that's twice the price almost. If that was $600, the same price, I would still choose the EBC. It is still a more capable IEM. It's still, I mean, you take a song like, for example, let me give you here an example so that you guys can understand. You take something like, for example, like I mentioned earlier, It Had to Be You by Jack Ross. The dynamics of the EBC80 on that song, the size, the sound stage that it's capable of producing is just surreal. And actually, I forgot to mention about the treble, but I'll carry on now. If the bass was well done, if the mids are well done, the treble here is, I would probably say, to a certain extent, the star of the show, because that balance of the ESTs and the bone conduction and how they interact with each other and they just clean up the sound, it just is next level. And when you listen to it and you listen to an Ultra straight away, you pick up on on the difference easily. That sounds, comparatively, it sounds like a $200 IEM in that respect, okay? The H60, like I said, even the H60 is to a certain extent more capable, considering that it's got less parts than the Moonlight. And again, let me repeat this, I like the Moonlight. I think the Moonlight is a good IEM, okay? The Moonlight Ultra. And I even said it when I reviewed it. I think to a certain extent, yes, the original Moonlight was the best one out of all of them because of price, performance, and everything. What did it lack? It lacked a little bit more bass that the Ultra has. That was basically it. But that matching of the sound, that coherence of the sound was very, very good. Really, really good. So, EBC80, it's sonically fantastic IEM. In terms of its technicalities, again, nothing that I can truly falter. Huge soundstage, imaging, detailed retrieval, resolution, everything is spot on. Spot on. I mean, very, very, very good. Very good. Trust me, I have a certain difficulty in actually finding the words, because you guys can think, oh, I'm just repeating himself. It's very good. Everything is very good. No, but it is musical, it is organic, and it's technically capable without being sterile, which is what happens many times. IEMs which are usually more clinical, more technically capable, become sterile, become lifeless. That doesn't exist here on the EBC80. Okay, So that's the EBC80 out of the way. And then finally, yeah, the TANGZU Bajie, which I've been waiting for it for a long time because I wasn't able to get it when it initially came out. They ran out of production, and I was finally able to get it. What can I say about the Bajie? Well, the Bajie uses again this quad bridge configuration. It's got 4 balanced armatures, it's got a static magnetic EST, it's got a piezoelectric unit as well, and then it's got this 14.2mm dynamic driver, which is an in-house developed dynamic driver, which they call it the SPDX driver. You know, the fact that they were able to fit such a big driver, let me just grab it here, inside of a shell and still keep the shell within reason, because the shell is basically the same size as the EBC and the 3001 from DUNU, you know, it's something that has to be commended. It is something that has to be commended. It's got a beautifully executed 3D printed shell. Everything inside internally has been, you know, high quality. It brings in a very, very good accessories package, like is the case as well with TANGZU. TANGZU doesn't play around in that aspect. I'm using the Azlet tips that it brought. I also used and I also tried the Fudus, the Senkai tips. I like the Senkai tips, and I would say I would recommend the Senkai tips if you want to just bring down the bass level ever so slightly. But again, this is one of those times that if you have a 14.2mm driver, you wanna take advantage of it. You know, it's almost like, if I was making an analogy to a car, it's like having a V8 with 600 horsepower, and you kind of now gonna want it to only have 200 horsepower because you were worried about saving the planet and fuel consumption. No, if you got a 600 horsepower V8, you want to make sure that it rumbles, and you want to have that fun of hearing it rumble, and you want to see what a V8 is all about. And that's exactly what the TANGZU, the Bajie is. You would say, oh, but 14.2mm drive, it's going to be overpowering. No, the bass is, for lack of a better word, how can I put this without wanting to kind of not value the other IEMs here as well. It's the best bass overall when you take quality and quantity and matching to the rest of the drivers. Yes, the Verdandi, I said, in terms of quality purely, it's probably the best one. In terms of that balance between quality and quantity, without question, the EBC, the H60 from ISN are really good. If you want a bass which is very sub-bass focused, again, without question, you know, the DUNU does the job perfectly. If you want a bass which has got loads of sub-bass focus, loads of organicness to it, yes, the bass of the EST50 and of the Urd are again really, really good. But if you want that kind of matching between quantity and then a really quality bass, it's the thing that surprises you the most about here is the reverberation that it's capable of doing. If I maybe make an analogy that you guys might better try and pick up what I'm trying to say. If you hear a well executed 18-inch subwoofer, it has that sense of volume, of space, of impact, of moving air that you cannot get out of a 10-inch. 10-inch can give it to a certain extent if it's a smaller room, but an 18-inch subwoofer, a proper 18-inch subwoofer, and I'm going to use the example of the EVs. I'm not going to use these newer generation high excursion drivers. I'm going to use Electro Voice 18-inch, the EV18 as an example, or an RCF L18 P200, which are two 18-inch subwoofers that I know very well because I used them extensively in my younger years. They just have this sense of size, of bass that is tremendous, because the way that they've been built, the combination voice coil, diaphragm magnetic structure has been so well executed, and which there's a parameter they call the BL factor, which determines that incisiveness of the bass, has been so well achieved that it just sounds like it has the speed of a smaller driver, but with the volume, I'm trying to find the word, with the volume and size of a big driver. Some 18-inch drivers are sluggish because they don't have that magnetic structure being good, and that's exactly what the Bajie has. It's definitely a good quality driver, and you can sense it by the way that especially when you listen to. Yes, fine, fair enough. The stuff that I usually talk about, you notice it. I mean, From Dusk to Dawn, all of those songs that I like, Riviera, by Bob Zapp Remix, The House of Groove, all those songs are really, really well done. I mean, nothing to be said there. But where you see it truly shining is if you start putting something which is maybe electronic music, like Verbier from Waracals, or Eclipse by Nihil Young, or Crescendo by Soul Button, or The Duty by Cedric Gervais. It does the bass in a way that just fills the room, and in this case fills your ears. It's kind of, you have to listen to it to truly experience it. Now, having said that, is the Bajie just about the bass? No, definitely not. The bass on the Bajie is, without a question, its main, let's say, attention, main point of attraction. But then the way that the rest of the drivers have been done, it gives you just this very, very nice presentation in the mids, in the upper mids and treble. No harshness, no aggressiveness. Mids are just the right amount. A tendentially slightly warmer sound, because obviously of the size of the dynamic driver than you get on the EBC, or than what you get on the DUNU. But the mids are lush. They have this really nice presence to them. Okay, upper mids to treble, phenomenal. Treble is clean, it's detailed. On occasions, maybe just slightly behind the EBC, but look, and I'll get to that in a second, obviously. But again, yes, $599 is a lot of money, without question. But TANGZU, much like a fool to a certain extent, has been able to, and even DUNU, with one exception here and there, the Cadenza being one of them, the 12, they have been able to prove that you don't have to have a super expensive IEM with a super crazy high price tag to have an unbelievable performance. That's the reality. I mean, I like ISN, I like PENON, but depending on the model, sometimes the price is slightly misadjusted, and so you have to be a PENON fan, you have to be an ISN fan, you have to like that style of sound to maybe justify that extra $50, $60, $100 that you pay comparatively to other similar IEMs. It's not across the board with all of their IEMs, no, it's not. But there are one or two IEMs that maybe the price could have been just slightly adjusted. I noticed it more actually on the TANGZU Mirai stuff. But anyway, overall, when you consider as well the accessories and everything ends up being very balanced. DUNU, like I said, for the exception of the Cadenza, which, okay, fine, I can understand. Not the Cadenza. My God, I apologize. I was misleading you guys. I was talking about the what's wrong with you, Tony? Today you're getting old, my friend. You're getting old. You are getting old. What I meant to say was what I meant to say. Let me get here. Please forgive me, guys. Please forgive me. Not the Glacier. Sorry, the Glacier. And even, I mean, I can understand it's a flagship model. It has to have obviously a certain quality to justify its flagship status. But you know, the reality is this: TANGZU and AFUL, and I say AFUL because they also do this very well, is TANGZU has been able repeatedly to give us products which that ratio between what they're offering and then the performance and everything is very, very good. Maybe the one that kind of falls a little bit short in this whole thing is the gate, because for the $649, yes, you do have a couple of other things which maybe are more justified in their overall balance of that ratio between price and you know, look, it's like I was saying, it's all about the law of diminishing returns, and you know. But so for $600, the performance that you get out of the Bajie is really, really good. So bass, without a question, no issues there. Transition to the mids, no bleed, nothing. Phenomenally well executed mids, upper mids, treble, everything very nicely done. In terms of its overall then technicalities, I would say detail retrieval is good. Soundstage is good, imaging is good, but what I personally feel is the star of the show here is the timbre and the tonality. While on the EBC80, I actually feel it's the soundstage and the imaging which are the star of the show. Okay, soundstage and imaging here are the star of the show, although the timbre and tonality are perfect, but here the timbre and tonality is the star of the show. In terms of the DUNU, I think again, the sensation of airiness of soundstage is probably the best technicality that it has. The timbre and tonality is correct, but it's not the star of the show. And just for the sake of doing it as well for those ones, star of the show, timbre and tonality, star of the show, timbre and tonality, timbre and tonality. I would say soundstage, and I would say there on the Moonlight, probably timbre and tonality as well, or the star of the shows. So guys, there you have it. Three very, very good IEMs, $499, $599, $699, $100 difference between them. Accessories difference wise, there's no difference. I mean, I would probably say that the one that, well, this has got a really nice cable. That's the truth. It's got oh my God, again another blank. What is wrong with you? Oh my, I'm just gonna I think I'm just gonna forget it. It's got that man, what is wrong with you? Anyway, cable is really good here. The cable on the EBC is not a bad cable, but I think there's margin there for an improved cable, definitely. But cable, tips, everything here nice. Again, this brings very good tips as well and so on. The DUNU, I think, is probably the best in terms of its tips. The cable, comparatively, it has the usage, the usability as its strong point. This is not about which to choose, which not to choose. It's about these three IEMs have joined this group of IEMs which I consider favorites of mine, which I use often. You know, the ones on the top there, I use them often. I like listening to them. I like using them as kind of benchmarks by which I then compare to other IEMs. The reason why I had the H60 here was for you guys to understand that the EBC follows the same sort of philosophy of the H60. It's just a more detailed, more technically capable IEM compared to the EST50. It's a different style of sound. It's a more detailed sound, more organic and musical, more technically capable here. Compared to the Verdandi, what can I say? Compared to the Verdandi, it's the price here is the thing that's difficult to overcome. So when you consider that they got basically the same sort of configuration and the value, I would say that this is better value for money. Not taking anything away from the Verdandi, nothing. Trust me, nothing. Compared to the Moonlight, it's just a better IEM overall in every aspect. Taking the Bajie now and just running it through here compared to those, compared to the Moonlight, better IM, compared to the Verdandi, it's the price is what just makes it be a more solid choice. Compared to the Urd, again, the price is what makes it to be a more solid choice because sonically they are different in their styles. Compared to the H60, yes, you do have enough to justify again a possible upgrade. This would be a possible upgrade from that. And compared to the EST, look, sonically they are different, so I can't go there. Price wise, that's got a better price, so that would probably be the most makes sense if what you want is a warmer sound. Okay, and then finally, the DUNU compared with them as well. Again, these two very different in their approach to the sound, so there's no different, and the price is very similar, so there's no winner here. Compared to the H60, yes, this is more expensive, and if you want detail, this is the better choice, definitely. If you want a more organic sound, then H60. Compared to the Urd, I love the Urd. I think the Urd is a fantastic IM, but the price makes this be the more sensible choice, unless what you want is that more organic, more musical type of sound. Compared to the Verdandi, the DUNU makes the most sense because they both have a kind of a similar philosophy in terms of sound. So, you know, really detailed up top, in the mids and highs and so on, but the price difference is huge. And then compared to the Moonlight, this is just a better IM, period. I mean, it not only price wise but sonically as well, it's a better IM. And that's that, guys. I'll show you the graphs and we'll wrap it up. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.